Hi guys, so I've been wanting to make a diorama for some time now, and obviously I want to use some lovely orcs, so I'll head across to Station Forge on my mini factory, and as you can see, loads here to choose from. I'm only going to pick the one, but the great thing is you can mix and match. Obviously I want to come up against an enemy, so I'm using these. They're kind of like Tyrannid kind of things. Again, these are all by Station Forge, links all down below. So I'm going to have a variety of these in the scene, but I also want the big beastie. So I'm using this glorious looking thing. So I'm going to print everything out on my Frozen Sonic Mighty 8K. You've seen me use this quite a few times. But this could well be the last time of me using the Mighty 8K. And the reason for that is, well, I'm expecting the Mini 8K any day now. Well, I say any day now. I had literally just filmed myself, well, showing you this little clip of showing where the new sort of printer is going to go. Just got to move away the resins. It should slot in there nicely. I may have to get rid of the handles on the side of this and put some thinner ones. But yeah, this is where it's going to go. But I'd literally just finished filming this bit, sat at my desk, doorbell goes, and lo and behold, this thing turns up. Yeah, it's here today, which is awesome. Because, well, I wasn't expecting this for a couple of days at least. So, yeah, the Mini 8K. So, can't wait to unbox this, get it ready, get it set up, and get it next to its big brother. So, everything printed out perfectly, as always. And, yeah, RPG resin is great, as you can see. Nice and flexible, nice and bendy. The supports just come off a treat. So, these have been in the wash station, and now they're in some warm water. Although, I did kind of make a little bit of a mistake. I put everything in together. So obviously there's an orc in here, there's a big sort of Tyrannid kind of creature, and then loads of little ones, as well as loads of bits and pieces I've got for the diorama itself. So yeah, bit of a rookie mistake, but there you go, everything's in there. Just got to sort it all out and dry it all off, and then put it in the curing station. So I've recently been making a few dioramas with resin, which I absolutely love. It's so much fun to mess about with this stuff. And I use these lovely large ones by Let's Resin. And as you can see, yeah, you can get a nice sort of pore depth here. A good 2 to 4 inches, although you possibly get a bit more out of it. You never know. So yeah, this is the stuff I'm going to be using. I'll show a bit more about this later on in the video. As always though, yeah, links down below to everything I'm using. As well as where you can get hold of the miniatures I've been using, as well as some of the terrain pieces. So the terrain pieces are by Print Minis. So as I'm going to be using epoxy resin in this, I want to make up sort of like a case box for this diorama, and rather than using MDF, which is what I would probably normally use, I'm going to use these sheets of 3mm plastics or perspex, whatever it might be called, just because obviously I know these then will hold the resin nicely. I can make a nice sort of watertight, well, little box really. So this stuff, yeah, pretty easy to cut. You just got to normally score it 2-3 times, obviously using a good Stanley knife here, and then you can just sort of like crack it. Obviously being careful to make sure that, yeah, you have scored enough, otherwise, well, it won't crack, it will just break. So there we go. This stuff does have protective film on either side, which is why obviously it cracked but didn't come away. I'm going to leave the film on until I've cut everything up, and then I can obviously, well, remove all the film. And then it's simply just a case of gluing all the bits together. So whenever I do a lot of gluing, I do like to use the old greaseproof paper underneath, just because I know, well, nothing's going to stick to that. Because if I did this on my actual board, then yeah, I could come a cropper and have whatever it is I'm building stuck to my desk. As always guys, if you have any ideas for dioramas you'd like to see me have a go at make, yeah, by all means let me know in the comments. Obviously the kind of sort of genre that I like going with is sci-fi or medieval. They're the two sort of areas that, well, you'll see a lot of obviously that kind of stuff on this channel. Whether it's Warhammer, Dungeons & Dragons, Hero Quest, Necromunda, all that kind of stuff. And I'll happily have a go at making, well, just about anything really, as I just love this hobby. Yeah, I was brought up on Blue Peter and Take Heart, obviously many moons ago. So yeah, just making things, fiddling about, absolutely awesome. Obviously times have changed since my my early days of making stuff. Yeah, 3D printers do play a big part in everything I do. And the main reason for this is, well, I can actually build exactly what's in my head, which is really cool. So obviously this box, I want to make sure it is nice and sealed, and yeah, when I pour the resin in, it's not going to leak. So I'm using the UV resin here, but again by Let's Resin, just to sort of seal, well, this little box up. Or I would do if my batteries were working. Yeah, quick change of batteries. And we'll have that puppy working. Yes, obviously the good old UV light. I like sometimes use UV resin as a kind of a glue, to be honest. As well as obviously sort of sealing this box up perfectly. But the fact that this stuff does, well, dries nice and hard with the UV light, yeah, occasionally I have used it as a kind of a glue. But not this case. This really is just, yeah, filling all the gaps. So I highly recommend Print Minis and Station Forge, as well loads of other fantastic model makers over on My Mini Factory, as that certainly is my sort of go-to place now for any miniatures, terrain, and well, any kind of bits and pieces I sort of need to make and paint wonderful things. As I really do love, obviously, painting miniatures on their own to play in sort of board games, say Warhammer, Hero Quest, that sort of thing. But yeah, every now and then it is fun to make these kind of like standalone little dioramas using some of the miniatures that I actually use in games. As yeah, these are, so I love making little dioramas. They're just fun little things. And yeah, love how this one's come out. So nice and simple, but going to be effective. And say having fun with the resin as well. I do like messing about with resin. It just seems to add another something special to sort of, well, any kind of miniature that you or diorama that you want to build. So this whole thing is going to be primed and painted and all the rest of it, so it doesn't really matter about me scratching the plastic as well. I say I'm only using the plastic just because I know this will definitely make a better sort of box to hold the clear resin in. On the chance of the MDF, yeah, that probably would have worked as well, but I say just for me, peace of mind, I thought I would use the plastic just to be on the safe side. So last thing I did there was just put in some pipes just to fill in that gap, and now I can put the miniatures in. So this is where a lot of people would probably say you're better off painting this thing first, paint the miniatures separately, and then glue them in. Nah, let's do it the hard way. So I'm literally going to put all the miniatures and bits and pieces in, and then slap shot paint them. Although one of the reasons I do quite like putting everything in, because when you come to do obviously the dry brushing, so prime it in all black, then do the dry brushing, but any areas you can't get to are going to be obviously a lot darker because they're not going to have any whites on them. So sometimes I find building a diorama, putting everything into it can sometimes work out better, because then there are sort of darker areas or shadows cast behind things like the miniatures that I'm obviously currently putting in. So I really love the fact that obviously I'm making this diorama with the orc on sort of the top chamber, fighting a few Tyranid looking things. But then down below is this huge mother of a Tyranid. So obviously because I have cut and moved bits and pieces on here to make him fit and look proper in the diorama, there's a few little gaps here and there. So yeah, I'm using this liquid green stuff, which is pretty cool. Just for obviously like filling in gaps. Probably wouldn't want to use this for actually sort of making little miniatures, as this stuff is, well, it's very wet. Very wet, very slimy. But for filling in little gaps here and there, yeah, awesome stuff. And now I can just finish off the little diorama by sticking in a few of these little Tyranids. I wasn't too sure how many I was going to get in there. I kind of printed out about 6 with a whole variety of, well, body parts. And then, yeah, it's just a case of seeing how many I can get in so it doesn't look too complicated or too messy, really. And there we go, yeah, pleased with this. So now onto the painting. Say it's going to be a little bit fun trying to paint certain bits, but that's all the fun of this hobby. Yeah, sometimes make things, well, a little bit difficult, perhaps. I'm not sure. So there we go, all primed in black, and yeah, loving it. So ready for a bit of dry brushing. Usual sort of thing. I'm going to use a white with this one. I have been messing about recently doing, well, a variety of different sort of colour dry brushings, as well as different colour primers, as it certainly does give different results. I think the priming in black, dry brushing white will always be my sort of main go-to. But every now and then, yeah, if I'm doing like one particular sort of, well, a dragon or something different, then yeah, I'm definitely going to have a go at messing about with different primers and different colours. So this is what I was saying, obviously when I'm doing the dry brushing, I can only really obviously reach, especially with the Tyranids there, the front sort of bits of them. I know I keep calling them Tyranids and they're not real Tyranids, but it's just for point of ease, it's easier saying that. So yeah, everything obviously is going to get dry brush from the front. Nothing's going to get dry brush at the back because, well, I can't get the dry brush in there. So that's again what I like about this sort of technique. You really are going to have areas that are, well, not going to get any light, are definitely going to be darker, if not almost black, which would be pretty cool. So yeah, I love it when it's been dry brushed because you really can see all the definition in all those lovely miniatures. And now, yeah, let's ready to slap some paint on this bad boy. So all the paints you'll see are from Green Stuff World Dipping Inks, and yeah, I'll put the obviously on the screen. You'll be able to see exactly which colour I'm using, well, for which part of whatever it is I'm painting. Yeah, I do waffle sometimes, I know. So yeah, painting wise, again, it wasn't too bad, it wasn't too tricky to get to the bits I need to. Again, any bits that I couldn't sort of paint, it's probably because you won't be able to see it. So things at the back, again, this really helps with these kind of dioramas in that anything you can't see or anything that is at the back is definitely going to be a lot darker, which will just sort of like add to where the light's coming from the front and not being able to hit the back, which is pretty cool. So obviously these miniatures I were sort of using to play Hero Quest, Dungeons and Dragons, Warhammer, Necromancer, whatever it might be, then yeah, obviously all miniatures would get painted separately. But yeah, these things are never going to be taken out of this. Obviously they're all glued in, so yeah, they wouldn't come out. But yeah, this is just a little box I'm going to make. Obviously I could put little holes in the back so I can sort of wall mount things. But yeah, this one at the moment is just going to be a standalone, and you can just obviously put it on your desk. That being said, guys, don't forget to check out my eBay, as occasionally whenever I run out of room, I then start selling off things that I've made. Purely again because I don't have a lot of room. I would love to have shelves and cabinets and whatever else full of everything I make and on show, but alas I can't. So yeah, check out the eBay link down below, guys, and see if, well, any of my stuff is on there. And I really can't wait to try out the Frozen Mini 8K, yeah, and see if it's as good as its big brother, as I've already got a few ideas of what I want to print out. Definitely a couple of miniatures that I'm looking at doing, and it's been a while since I made a new Kill Team board or Kill Zone. So yeah, that's something else I'm considering 3D printing, is a Kill Zone board, and I'm probably going to print out a new Hero Quest board, just because I want to sort of well, I'm not going to spoil anything, but yeah, keep a lookout. Yeah, definitely a few new boards coming out very soon. So I had a cunning plan, because obviously I'm going to fill this little diorama with some clear resin, but there's a bit where, well, there's nothing there to stop the resin from pouring out, and that's at the top of the tube. So my cunning plan was to make a little sort of cap to go at the top of the tube, and what better way of doing that than using some clear resin. As you can see, I've printed out another sort of well, half tube, so I can put some resin in, so I know this is going to fit the diorama or the space I want it to go in perfectly. Yeah, good old clear resin, the old UV lights, a couple of minutes, and voila, I've now got a kind of a cap to go on the diorama, so when I pour the resin in, it's not going to pour out the top. Doesn't matter that this isn't all that neat, that's fine. Just need to cut out a little channel for it, just so it can sort of slot in the top. If you weren't sort of sure what I was talking about, because sometimes I never have a clue, yeah, this is what I was referring to. So this top bit, if I pour resin in the main chamber at the bottom, it will obviously leak out this, well, this top bit. So making this little cap will just sort of stop it from leaking out. And again, a bit more UV resin just to sort of, well, glue it in place and to make sure it is nice and tight and sealed. So just before I pour the resin in, just need to finish off painting the lovely orc there. Using my kind of go-to. I've got go-to colours now whenever I paint orcs. Sometimes I do mix it up, but yeah, typically the green, the brown, the orange and the blue will always be the same. Again, I'm going to leave on the screen so you can see exactly which dipping inks I am using to, well, just to finish off this guy. Nice and quick, nice and fast, but definitely to a standard I'm happy with. And that's what it all comes to when we're painting things, guys. I know what I'm doing. Some of you will be like, oh yeah, you need to spend more time doing this, doing that, adding highlights or whatever it might be. But for me, yeah, I love the simplicity of using, well, dipping inks, contrast paints, speed paints, whatever it is you've got to hand. Yeah, absolutely love these. They do all the work and certainly make things, well, 10 times better than I can, well, without doing it. So it's all about finding your happy standard of, well, the way you paint. So that's him now ready for the resin, and so he briefly showed you at the beginning. So let's resin, epoxy resin for deep pour, just because obviously, well, it's only going to be about a couple of inches, but yeah, certain resins you can do deep pours, and other resins, well, you just can't. So what I really love about this stuff is there's no bubbles. I mean, you'll see me mixing up in a minute, and you'll see, well, bubbles galore, but they all go, which is just amazing. I've used a variety of resins in the past. Yeah, none have been as good as this one, especially as I don't have one of those lovely vacuum chamber contraption thingies to sort of suck out all the air. Yeah, this one, say, you can see now, there's, well, you'd think it'd be a right old mess, but this stuff, honestly, it is the best one I've ever used. The resin or the bubbles just disappear over time. The only downside, if you call it a downside to this, is it is a longer curing time. Whether it's a downside or not, so say longer curing time on this. Typically, this is a good 3 days, 3 days, maybe even 4, for it to fully sort of cure. But say the upside is there are no bubbles whatsoever, and also as well as that, it doesn't heat up. Some of the ones I've used in the past, they have got crazy hot, to the extent they've actually warped the plastic mould that I put them in. Whereas this stuff doesn't get hot at all, and I say it is just crystal clear. So yeah, a really good one to use. So I mix it up in these little pots. Obviously I knew I was going to need more than one. Just eyeballing it, I made up 2, which it seemed to be the perfect amount, with just a little bit left in. So it's just a case of, say, leaving it now. Every now and then I'd go and check on it, and there was a couple of bubbles at the top, not many. They probably would have gone on their own, because they do generally, but I just wanted to use my little flame to get rid of them. And then, as I say, yeah, it is a case of putting it to one side, and this is why I always work on several projects at once. So while that one's curing, I can go off and do something else. And there we go, a few days later, it's cured, rock hard, and crystal clear. And it's merged in really, really well with that little cap that I made for the top. You can't even see that it's kind of like 2 little bits. So yeah, so I love the fact that obviously I got resin poured in it, and obviously it's not leaked out anywhere or made a mess. And as I say, there's not an air bubble in there. There's a little bit of dust on the top, but that's about it. So yeah, really pleased with how this has come out. As I say, I just love this stuff, and it is just fun messing about with stuff that's different. So I just want to paint the resin. Obviously I could have poured a little bit of colour in the resin initially, but as I wasn't too sure exactly what I wanted to do with it, and sometimes in the past when I have put just a couple of little drops of paint in with resin, sometimes it's gone darker than what I wanted. So now I find it much easier just to pour the resin as is, nice and clear, and then if I want to change the look of it, then just use, well, the dipping inks. So that's what I'm using here, but obviously as you can see, I've added some more water to it, so it flows a whole lot more. It is definitely more translucent, and yeah, I'm just going to keep sort of moving it around because I don't want it to look too thick, because obviously I still want to be able to see my little creature from underneath without sort of obscuring him too much. So yeah, it was a case of just moving it all around. But just to add a little bit of well, a little bit of murkiness even more to it, I've added another little colour into the mix, and that's this lovely vibrant yellow. Again, I've mixed in quite a lot of water with this just to help it flow, spread around, and yeah, then it's a case of keep moving it around till I was happy with how it looks. I didn't want it to sort of obscure the miniature too much, so I let it dry, and this is kind of how it looks. So I wasn't all too happy with it initially, as it has come out quite dark and you can't really see, well, what's in there. So yeah, putting a bit of water over the top. So this stuff's literally only just dried, so I can kind of rub some of it off, which is exactly what obviously I'm doing here. Again, whenever I make things, guys, things don't always go to plan. But if I ever do make something and it does go bad, it does go wrong, I'll always show you exactly what happens. Just because obviously that's the best way of learning, is to see what happens or what can go wrong, and then see if you can correct it. So we managed to take off quite a bit there, and yeah, this is a bit more like it. There's a few areas that seem a bit patchy, not too sure why that is, but yeah, no, I'm pleased with how this looks. As they say, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, so if I'm happy with what I made, well, then that's all that really matters. Yeah, are there errors? Yeah, there's always errors. There's always mistakes somewhere. But it's just a case of living with them, because we can't be perfect all the time, or even some of the time. Anyway, love how this looks, love how this came out. Let me know in the comments, guys, what you'd like to see me make in the future. If you enjoyed this video, if you didn't enjoy it, well, then don't watch anymore, I guess. But if you did enjoy it, please consider subscribing, turning on the notification bell, hitting that like button, and sharing wherever possible. Okay, guys, you'll take care. See you in the next one. Bye for now.